Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Sydney and I'm 25 years old. I'm so excited for you tuning into this video. Today I'm going to be talking about my 2026 financial goals, and I'm going to break this down into a few different categories. But before I dive in, I just want to give a little quick explanation and background on who I am. I live in British Columbia, Canada currently, and I started this channel to share the financial knowledge that I'm currently learning. I am not a financial expert, but I'm so passionate about talking about money. It's something that I've always loved learning about, but I was always stuck in this perpetual cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, never feeling like I could get ahead financially, and I'm only just slowly starting to get out of that hole. So I'm basically starting from ground zero, and I want to share my financial journey with you so that we can all learn together, because I think that being young, being in our early 20s, no matter how old you are, it is so important to learn how to manage our money and our finances, because truly the more I learn and go down these rabbit holes, the more I realize how important it is and how the small, seemingly insignificant actions that we take on a daily basis financially can impact our future selves. And so I want to learn this information now alongside you so we can learn together and hopefully change our financial future outcome together, because I think together we can empower one another. I have leaned on these YouTube videos specifically to learn so much about money that has helped me unlock so many different financial levels in my own life. I want you to feel the same and create a space where it is safe to talk about finances, where we can learn together. So without further ado, let's talk about the different categories I have for my 2026 financial goals. Okay, so I have my handy dandy notebook today, and I am going to be talking about 5 different categories of goals that I have going into 2026. So my first goal category is going to be my habits that I'm going to be taking on a daily, monthly, annual basis to help me get towards my financial goals. And then my second category is going to be my debt elimination. So how I plan on getting rid of some of my debt this year and what actions I'm going to be taking there. And then the third one will be my emergency and safety net category. So how I am preparing for any emergency situations and how I'm setting myself up to create buffers and to create more security, and just also creating psychological safety. As I feel like when you have that buffer, it is crazy what it can do for your psychological, financial views and outlook just on life in general. So, and then moving on to that, I will be going on to my fourth category, which will be my saving habits, and then cash flow, and how I will be saving money and what my goals are there. And my last category will be investing and how I'm investing to create a better future for future me. So my habit number 1 that I will be doing for 2026 is to track every single dollar for the next 12 months. I think this is one of the best things you can do for yourself because it creates awareness. If you are wanting to change your financial circumstance, creating that awareness is one of the best things you can do. Without it, it's really hard to make proper changes. A lot of the times we have so many bills or expenses that we are unaware of. There's something really empowering about tracking our spending, because with what you track, you can make those changes and allocate money elsewhere if you're overspending in one category. So for me, that's really important. I want to track every single dollar. I want to track all my expenses so that by the end of the year, I can properly reflect and be like, okay, how much did I spend for groceries? How much did I spend for maybe shopping? How can I change this? Where did I feel like maybe I overspent? Or where did I feel like maybe I underspent and I could probably, maybe I have some more room to invest towards my goals based on what I value in terms of spending. So that was going to be my number 1 habit. Number 2 is going to be maintain a zero-based budget / intentional budget. If you're unfamiliar with what a zero-based budget is, essentially, let's say I bring in $3,000 a month, I have to allocate and plan out where each of those dollars is going to go. For instance, I have my rent, bills coming out, variable spending, groceries, fuel. I have my own financial goals, so towards savings, towards investing, where is all of that money going to go? I need to make sure that I'm paying all my bills, but I also need to make sure that I'm allocating money towards future Sydney and towards my goals. So those are going to be a priority. And then how much do I have left to put towards my variable spending, my groceries and fuel? And how do I make that all work cohesively? Number 3 is to review my spending on a weekly basis. Now, for myself personally, I'm most likely going to do this actually every other couple days, 2-3 days, give or take. And the reason why I personally am going to be doing this more often than not, I know some of you might be like, I only check my expenses or my spending once a month. I don't feel as though I'm privileged enough to do that. I'm not in a financial position where I'm bringing in enough to warrant me just sitting back and not being on top of it. Until I have that safety net and have built up enough of a cushion, and even then I think I will most likely still track my spending on a weekly basis. I really like being in the weeds and checking my spending so that if I do overspend one day, I can check myself in a couple days and be like, all right, Sydney, I recognize I've already kind of overspent in this category and I'm only in week 2 of the month. I need to tone back my spending for the next couple of weeks. Whereas if I did it monthly, I might be overspending and dining out and not even recognizing that. And then by the time I sit back at the end of the month to check my spending, I'm like, oh, ouch, I completely overspent in this category and I didn't even realize it. Because sometimes, as obvious as it might seem, it is really easy to overspend when you're not really aware. $10 for one payment is not a lot for eating out, but when you add that up and you're doing that every day or every other day, those costs really significantly add up. So I think for myself, creating that awareness and staying on top of that is extremely important. All right, and number 4 is to know my exactly monthly burn rate. So for me, I have allocated this already and figured this out. Not allocated, but figured this out already. So essentially your monthly burn rate is how much you need to live off of to support your lifestyle for a month. For me, I'm including my fixed expenses, so my rent, anything that is super essential, as well as essential variable spending like groceries, fuel, things that I need to have in my life. My monthly burn rate ends up being about $2,000.46 and 48 cents. And this is including everything that I absolutely need, not including what I think I need. So no subscriptions, no wants, no shopping, no dining out, just the very bare bone essentials. Then I add on 8% towards that burn rate. So about $164 roughly, just to leave a little bit of a buffer. And now I know exactly what my burn rate is, so this can help me plan better for different things like my emergency fund. I know exactly how much I need to be spending on a monthly basis in order to survive. If I want to save 3 to 6 months worth of money towards my emergency fund, I know I will need at least $6,000 to have about 3 months worth of emergency fund funded. And then if I want 6 months, well, I might need closer to that $12,000 mark. So instead of just giving a random ballpark number, which I definitely was guilty of doing before, saying, I want $5,000 in my emergency fund. Okay, but what is that actually going to cover? Understanding your numbers, understanding that burn rate can be extremely huge for planning like your emergency fund, or understanding how much you have left over to put towards savings or your investing goals or your own fund money. Another goal that I have for myself for 2026 is to identify 3 areas where I have money leaking and to decrease my spending in those categories. In one of my last videos, I did a 2025 financial audit and uncovered a couple of those categories. I was unaware of how much money was going towards those categories. Tracking expenses and creating that awareness is so important because oftentimes we have no idea that we're spending so much money towards certain categories in our life. So a couple of those categories for me was my groceries and dining out. I was spending almost $400 on each of those categories. So $800 a month towards eating alone just for myself. A few things have changed in my life in terms of my job. I'm not home as much. I can start eating at home a lot more than eating out. So I know I can save money there and put that excess money towards savings and investing goals. I also was very naive because I had a lot of shame around my money, like so many of us do. I knew I was in credit card debt And I had all of these different service fees and interest charges added to my account on a monthly basis, but I just didn't want to look because it scared me. Finally, when I decided to take ownership of my money and track all my spending, I calculated it all. I was spending about $6,000 towards service fees, which is about 11% of my take-home income for the year, which blew my mind because I didn't think it was that much. I was like, it's $20 for a fee here, $10 here, $30 here. I just felt like I was underwater. At that time, it felt really impossible. I didn't realize it was going to be that much. I thought it would maybe be a couple thousand, which still is not great, but 6,000 blew my mind. And also a few of those were things that were in my control that I could have changed. For instance, I have an overdraft in my checking account. So if I did go over it, it kind of acted as a buffer, but I definitely treated it more like a credit card. So what ended up happening was that I would end up getting charged a service fee for utilizing that overdraft, which ended up being $5 or $10 a month. And then I would also get charged interest if I was in that negative. Those fees added up immensely. So now I know I'm going to try and keep a buffer above that, so I'm never dipping into that overdraft unless it's absolutely imperative and I need to, which hopefully if I have the right parameters in mind, I will not have to do that. So becoming aware of your financial leaks is critical because that's where you can make some huge changes. Another one I want to do is compare my plan versus actual spending every month to see, okay, how much should I spend versus what I had actually planned? Do I need to make any shifts and changes? Am I overspending in a category? Why was I overspending? And then understanding that maybe I was underspending, maybe I have a little bit more money I can now utilize in another category. So that is really important, and I will be doing that at the end of every month. Okay, number 7 is that I want to set a very clear limit for fund money every month, and I really want to respect this. I don't want this money going towards bills. I want this money to go towards something fun for me. I really think there should be some fun in your month. Setting a limit and using that money to go out with friends or buy myself something and have it guilt-free, making sure that I am respecting that and utilizing that money for myself. After all, I am putting money and paying myself towards other goals, then I really should be having some fun along the way too, right? And my last goal is that in 2026, I want to end the year strong, knowing where every single dollar went. I want to know how I was spending my money, how much was going towards fixed expenses versus variable expenses, how much I saved versus how much I invested. So that way I can create a solid foundation going into the years ahead and make any changes or revisions that I need to make. Especially coming from a place where I wasn't tracking. Most of 2025, I didn't have proper awareness. I had a lot of shame around money, and that's still something I'm really working towards actively and taking all the steps and measures to learn as much as I can possibly. I want to take this entire year to start making those changes and understanding where all of my money is going towards in 2026. Okay, let's dive into the next category, which is debt elimination and the strategies and habits that I plan to take in 2026. My first goal is to pay off my existing line of credit. I have about $3,600 remaining on it. My goal is to pay the minimum payment every month. If I have any excess income or bonuses throughout the year, I plan to put that money towards my line of credit, as it is my highest form of interest debt currently. At the very moment, I do have my car payment as well, but that has a lower interest rate than my line of credit. So the line of credit takes precedence, so I hope to pay that off by the end of the year. My next goal is that I never want to carry a balance month to month on a credit card. Fortunately for me, because I had paid off a couple of credit cards a couple of months ago, I decided to cancel them. I don't plan on opening any other credit cards. At least for the season of life I'm in, it makes sense to just scrap credit cards altogether. They just don't work for me. I do believe they can be a great tool if utilized correctly. But for me personally, I think for the average person, they definitely have a tendency to get mismanaged and misused. It's really easy to use them as a crutch in case you are short on income. And personally, it's not worth the rewards for me in that scenario if I'm going to end up putting myself into jeopardy and lean on credit card debt and just end up in a worse position in the long run. I would rather have no credit cards right now and just get in a better habit with my money. Perhaps down the line, when I think I have a better buffer and more of a security net and have more money saved up in the bank, I will think about opening up a credit card to utilize for the rewards and the benefits, because I do think that they can be very, very powerful and great. But I don't want to ever be in a position where I'm left to wonder whether or not I'm going to be able to pay down my credit card. By having better systems in place, that will give me so much more confidence to want to have a credit card, because I'll never have to wonder whether I will be able to pay it off or not. So for now, never carrying a credit card balance, which should be easy because I don't have any credit cards aside from my line of credit, which I already don't utilize. The only thing I'm utilizing there is not even utilizing, but paying off that debt. My next goal for 2026 is to not refinance a phone. Every couple of years when my contract is up, I have had a very bad habit of refinancing a phone because it made the most financial sense, or what I thought made the most financial sense, to just upgrade. Here's where the phone providers get you. And I just learned about this because I took the time to read through my contract properly. I already had a perfectly good phone when I upgraded this about 2 years ago. I walked into a store with no intention of getting a new phone, but I was just looking at the new ones and admiring them. One of the sales reps came over to me and he said, "Hey, I get you that phone, 0% down. You don't have to pay anything today. You get a new phone and then we take your old phone." I said, "Oh, that sounds pretty great." But wrong. This is where they get you. You sign up for a new phone plan, you don't pay anything down. The only catch is, when your phone plan is up, you don't own this phone. You're paying for it on top of your phone bill every single month. Then they keep you in this perpetual cycle because they offer you two exit scenarios. One, you pay $800-900 that you would have put down on that first day to buy out your phone. And now it's 2 years later, your phone is old. So you're kind of thinking, well, I don't want to put $800-900 on a phone that's like 2 years old. That doesn't make any sense. Or the phone company will give you what they think your phone is worth, which is significantly less now because it's 2-3 years old. So, you're like, I don't want to pay $800-900, but I also know you're not going to give me what I want for my phone because it's, a depreciating asset. It's 2-3 years old, right? But ultimately, what the average person does and what I did was take option B, which is, okay, just give me what you think my phone is worth. And then you don't have enough to buy a phone outright. So what happens? You end up in the same cycle where you get the latest phone. You don't have to pay anything down. You think you're getting at least a couple $100 extra because now the phone company is giving you at least $200. But what you're missing is you just paid for your phone every single month for 2 years for a phone now you do not even own, just to give it back for them to give you a couple $100 towards what your phone is not even worth now. You end up losing money in the long run. Instead of keeping a perfectly good phone for the next year or two, keeping your phone bill down low. Now you're increasing it because now you're financing it, essentially just renting your phone. And then when your phone plan is up, you're giving it back to get the newest model. So for me, when my phone plan is up, I'm going to save that $800-900, pay for my phone outright. So now the phone is mine and I completely own it. Try to keep it for as long as possible to avoid any extra interest. And I can just be paying my phone bill and significantly reduce that. So now instead of paying $120 a month that I'm paying currently, I will go down to what my phone plan actually is, which is about $70, and hopefully bring that down even more so that I'm saving a significant amount every single month instead of being stuck in this perpetual cycle of paying so much for a phone that I don't know. It's just crazy. That is something that I just learned, and I think it's really important for people to be aware of, because sometimes these phone plans seem so enticing, but they really are not as enticing because they benefit the carrier. They do not benefit the average person. And that leads me on to my next point, which is to not upgrade technology unless it is absolutely necessary and my phone or computer is absolutely broken and toast and that I have literally no other choice. And in that scenario, still going back to the same principle of do not finance a phone, do not finance a laptop. If you cannot afford it, you just have to live without it until you can save up to buy it. Because when you finance it, there's so much hidden cost and that interest just adds up significantly. So I'm going to try and plan ahead, save up that money in advance, because inevitably I'm going to have to get a new phone. Inevitably I'm going to have to get a new laptop. Hopefully that won't be for a few years, but planning ahead can definitely make a difference. And then you don't end up in a position where you have to finance new technology. And my last goals for the debt elimination is to ultimately just end 2026 with fewer debts than I have. So again, axing that LOC payment, so line of credit, which is about $3,600, and then reducing my current car payment that I have. So again, I'm paying about $243 bi-weekly, and I have about $15,000 left on that. So ultimately bringing that total down, and then any extra money I get throughout the year after I pay off that line of credit, I want to put towards the principal on my car payment. So hopefully bringing my debt down significantly. And also on the last point is to just not finance anything. Going into my third category, which is emergency fund and creating a safety net. My first goal for this one is to get my emergency fund up to $4,000 in 2026. Currently, it's sitting at about $2,500, but ultimately I would like to get that up to $4,000 so that I have about 2 months worth of living expenses. Going back to my burn rate, that is how I know that would be about 2 months worth of expenses. Ultimately, my goal would be to get more between the 3 to 6 month, ideally 6 months. So I know that I would need closer to 12 grand in that account to help supplement my lifestyle for those 6 months. My next goal for myself, and I know this one might sound silly, but someone starting from ground zero, it is really tempting to dip into savings or emergency fund if something comes up. My goal for 2026 is to not touch my emergency fund at all, unless it is a true emergency. With that, I want to keep that emergency fund in a high yield savings account so that it is working for me and earning interest over time. Another thing I am doing in 2026, which is really new for me, is to actually create an account that is a buffer account / my rollover account, keeping a little bit of extra money every single month. So maybe that's the 8% buffer from my burn rate and putting that into my rollover account every month. So that way, when anything happens, like let's say what I found in the past is that my payday never aligns with my rent payment because my rent comes out on the very first of the month. So instead, what I'll do is I'll just take a percentage off of every single paycheck, put it into this rollover buffer account, and try to keep like a specific amount between like $1,000 and $1,500. I'm not at that point yet, but I want to get to that point in 2026. So that way I'm not worried if I don't get paid as much as I had planned, or if anything happens, I know I'll be covered for my rent and expenses. So it's just sitting there as a buffer in case things don't properly line up. I find that has helped me as I've just started doing this, and I've only had a few $100s, but it's just been like a huge relief knowing, okay, I have like $300 to $700 in this account. If things don't add up to what I'm anticipating, I'll still be okay. Next one is I want to fund a car maintenance account proactively, because inevitably something's going to come up with my car. It always does. I know that I need an oil change every couple of months. Every year I might need to get new tires. Something that could go wrong with my car, and I just want to be prepared. So proactively funding that account so that when I do need to do anything for my car, I can just pull money from that. I'm not stressed and not worried about it because I didn't plan. When again, it's just going to happen. Having a car can be quite expensive, so I'd rather plan for that than not plan. And ultimately for 2026, I want to end the year knowing that if I have 1 or 2 setbacks, it's not going to derail me. It's not going to derail my savings and investment goals. I won't have to dip into my savings or investing because something big has come up that I wasn't planning for. And now I know that I have that security of knowing that I have an emergency fund. So when something comes up, because inevitably life throws us these crazy circumstances that we just can't even try to guess. That is my goal for 2026, having an emergency buffer so that I'm prepared when those things happen. And now let's move on to the fourth category. This one I'm so excited about because truly one of the things I really value above anything else in terms of finances and spending money is saving money and investing money. So I want to talk about what I'm doing for saving this year and my goals towards savings, and then I'll dive into my investing goals after that as well. Okay, so my first saving habit that I want to do this year on a monthly basis is save a minimum of 10%. So that'll work out to be about $340 a month. And that is at the very minimum. I ideally want to be saving much more than this. My next one will be to automate my savings contributions. So having these come out as soon as I get paid, these automatically get put into their designated accounts So I don't even have to think about it. I don't have to worry when I do get paid. So right now I do have 3 systems that are automating in terms of savings. So every month I have $50 that gets allocated towards my travel savings sinking fund, $50 that goes towards my rollover account, $50 that gets put towards my emergency fund, and $50 that gets put towards my savings goals. So I have 4 different buckets for that, and that is just the very bare bone minimum. Typically what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll actually manually take a top up amount, and I will still top up those accounts, but I just want to know that I at the very least have $50 going towards those accounts that is automated for now. Once I start increasing my income over the next handful of years, my goal would be to automate the full amount. For now, I really feel safe just knowing that I have $50 automated that goes into all of those accounts right now. Next, I really want to get into a habit of making sure that I'm paying myself first and not after. I think what I've done in the past, and I think what a lot of people do, is they get paid, they go on defensive mode, and they want to make sure that their bills are taken care of, their rent and their groceries, they're able to put food on the table, which is totally understandable, and I get doing that. But I do suggest that it's important to get into a practice of learning to take care of ourselves first and to pay ourselves first, even if that's a very small amount. It does not have to be a lot. Maybe you're only able to do $25, $50. But if you can do that at the very least, put that in an account you're not going to see, or your emergency fund, that will be empowering for you to start out with. You don't have to do it all at once, but making sure that you are getting into a place, and for me specifically, I want to make sure that I'm paying myself first and then worrying about my bills after the fact. Another goal I have for myself is to create sinking funds in terms of my lifestyle goals. I have been notoriously a spontaneous gal, okay? So I wouldn't plan out purchases, although I knew it was inevitable I'd have a concert or something come up because I love music. Instead of being spontaneous, 2026 is going to be the year where I actually plan things accordingly. So I want to create sinking fund accounts. So essentially savings accounts that I'm allocating money towards so that when a concert does come up, I can plan for that and I don't have to worry about it because I know I have that money there. So a few of those categories that I want to have, one is travel. I already have a traveling sinking fund that I'm putting money into. It's a small amount for right now, but it'll add up over time. And that way I know when I do want to go travel, I have some money allocated towards traveling, which will just feel really nice knowing that I saved up for an entire year to go on this trip. It's more rewarding that way too, and eliminates the possibility of me going into credit card debt to go on a trip. Number 2 is concerts. That is something that I truly value. I love music more than anything. I have been to dozens of concerts, and it's where I like to spend my money because I love experiences. So creating a concert travel or concert sinking fund is going to be really important. That way when my favorite artist is coming to town, I don't have to say no. Lastly, my other sinking fund that I want to do this year, which I've never done, is have a gift giving sinking fund, because if you're anything like me, it's really hard to think about Christmas so far in advance, but every year I come into the same predicament where I have nothing saved. I feel like a terrible person because I don't have the money to buy my family and friends the gifts that I want to give them and ultimately what they deserve to have. So this year, I really want to allocate some money every month towards gift giving. So that way, when Christmas or birthdays come around, I have money that I can dip into to buy gifts, and I can be a little bit more thoughtful when those time of year come around. That was a boatload of a mouthful. My next couple goals in terms of the savings category is to maintain a positive cash flow each month. So again, not dipping into my overdraft and staying above. That might mean living below my means and not spending as much as I normally would. Keeping a buffer in my checking account would be like the ultimate goal for me, because have again been stuck in that cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, and ultimately I was diving into my overdraft every month because I wasn't planning properly. That is a huge goal for 2026. And ultimately, I just want to finish the year off with more cash than I started with. And lastly, let's talk about one of the most exciting categories for 2026, which I've never been able to do, at least consistently for long periods of time without taking money out of my account, that is to invest my money. So some of my main goals for 2026 is to invest monthly and not sporadically. So again, automating those investments, going into those proper and designated accounts. This is my number one priority aside from paying off my debt, to invest, because I want my money to start working for me and creating that interest over the years. The longer your money has to sit in the market, time in the market is going to be much more beneficial and important than saving all of your money for 10 years and then putting in that same amount, because now you are earning money. So it is so important to me. My next one is that I really want to utilize tax advantaged accounts appropriately. So TFSA, my RRSP, and my first-time homebuyer savings account, and really understand the implications behind them and what makes the most sense for where I'm at in my life and where I ultimately would like to get to. My priority number one is to invest in my tax-free savings account. So ultimately what this means is this is money that is already going to be taxed. So let's say I invest $5,000 into my tax-free savings account. I've already been taxed on this money. So when it does grow inevitably over 10 years and I go to take money out, I will not be taxed on that money, which is great, because if I'm taking out $30,000, that could be a lot of money that would be taxed from me. So instead, I'm being taxed now rather than later, which is really important. So my goal with my tax-free savings account is to ultimately invest $5,000 this year. So I'm not necessarily maxing it out. I'd love to get to a point where I'm maxing out all of these accounts, but given how much I make, it's just not really feasible. But I would like to get to that point later on in life. So right now I'm at $5,000 for my goal for TFSA. And then in terms of my employer match, I contribute 4% every year, and then they contribute 6%, including my employer contributions. I would like to be at $5,000 by the end of this year. And that is already based on the numbers and the math I've run. I think I may have left a little bit of wiggle room where I can probably invest a little bit more. But for now, I would like that to also be at $5,000. Second to last, I have my first-time homebuyer savings account, and this is another tax-free savings account that I would like to get to $1,500. This is going towards a first-time home purchase. Now, this is another conversation for another video, but my priority is not to buy a home. I don't see myself buying a home right now in the next 5-10 years. Anything can change. I'm just taking advantage of having a tax-free first-time homebuyers account and putting $1,500 in. That might change, but for now, I'd like to get to $1,500 by the end of the year. For my emergency fund, I would like to contribute $1,100 towards that as well. Moving on, I want to continue learning and integrating my investing principles. So I am a long-term growth-minded investor, so I want to learn as much as I can in terms of what makes the most sense for that outlook. I find it so fascinating. It excites me so much. The more I can learn, the more principles I can gain under my belt, the more I can utilize that to my own knowledge and future self. Moving on, I want to avoid speculative and hype investments. We've heard of these investments that come up and everyone's like, you need to invest in this because you're going to make a lot of money in the next month or two. A lot of people invest their money in those without understanding the implications. They don't understand the business model. They don't understand what the actual business is. And they invest their money and ultimately end up losing because they didn't understand what they were getting into, or it was very volatile. My goal is to have a strong understanding of where I'm investing my money, because you are essentially a part owner in anything that you are purchasing stocks in. So, and that's exactly what Warren Buffett has done. He makes sure that he has a full understanding of what the business does, that he knows and understands their business numbers, profits, earnings, and balance sheet. That is something I want to start taking advantage of going into 2026. Before I invest in something, I want to fully understand. I want to be able to explain what that company does to someone else. So for instance, one of those is Bitcoin. I don't have any money invested in Bitcoin right now because I don't fully understand it. And I tried having this conversation with someone a while ago and realized I don't fully understand it. This is something I have been learning and trying to understand, and understanding why it could be beneficial for us in the long run. And then maybe I will invest into it because I do see that it could potentially have some great benefits, but I don't understand it. So I'm not going to invest into it right now. The next one is I want to increase contributions as my debt decreases. So for instance, when I pay off my car, I'll have an extra $243 bi-weekly. I want to separate that money majority of that going towards my investments, maybe some going into sinking funds for savings, and ultimately utilize that money in a more productive way, making money for me instead of losing money. Moving on from that, I want to make sure that I am separating my emotions from investing, understanding that when you do invest, times are going to go up and down, but over the long run, the dollar cost average will most likely go up. When you look at history and different investments, very specific on what you're investing into. But for example, the S&P 500 has a historical rate of return of about 10% annually. So yes, did it have some up years versus some down years sometimes? Absolutely. But in the long run, if you were holding your money for 20, 30 years, that money is inevitably going to go up. Next, on that same note, stay invested during market fluctuations. Again, times are going to go up and down, so just making sure that I'm not letting fear get to me and taking out my money when there's a lot of fear in the market. Instead, perhaps using that as an opportunity to buy when there's a lot of fear because the price has gone down. Again, keep in mind doing your research, understanding what you're investing into before you do that as well. And then lastly, I just want to end 2026 with a repeatable investment strategy and system so that I can repeat going into the future. So that all being said, those are my categories and my goals for 2026. I hope that those inspired you. Maybe you learned something or got some takeaway that you might implement in your own life. I am really happy to announce that I have a free tracker that I've created that touches on all of these categories, and I have called it the Survival to Steady Tracker. And I touch on all 5 of these categories. So I have things that you can be more mindful of going into 2026 for your habits, debt, savings, investing, etc. And you can track it. So I'll put it on the screen here so you can see it. I think it'll be really beneficial for those of us who are just starting from ground zero or maybe just trying to keep your head afloat. This is not for someone who's making $100,000 plus. You can definitely still utilize this, but this is aimed more for the folks like me and you who are just trying to do the best you can. You're not necessarily making a lot, but want to make progress along in your financial journey. So feel free to click the link in my bio and you can download that for free. And I hope that it adds a lot of value and helps you out. Just gives you more guidance and frame of reference for your financial journey. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, feel free to give a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.